I've always loved to read, ever since I was a little kid. Now that, to be honest, that may have something to do with the fact that I grew up in an era where there were literally, no exaggeration, there were 3 TV channels. ABC, CBS, NBC. We had UHF too, but that really didn't count. And if you're my age, you know that. It was sort of fuzzy and it was public access. We didn't have the internet because we didn't have personal computers. We didn't have smartphones because we didn't have cell phones. All this tells you, number one, that I'm old. Number two, we did have video games though. 1, Pong. You remember Pong? Pong was a what? Yes, thank you. Let's hear it for Pong. Pong was a white dot simulating a ball and 2 rectangles simulating paddles. At that point, we weren't actually able to make paddles. So I read a lot. And I've loved to read since then. Still do. But what I found is the more that life is pressed in with obligations, I read less and less. I don't even get to read the stuff I want to, much less the stuff I need to. For example, I'm in a book club. I am. See, I like to read. I'm in a book club. I meet with 3 other guys once a month. And so we only have to read 1 book a month. And to be honest, I don't get the book done every time. And the worst was last month when I emailed one of my friends in the group and I said to him, okay, I haven't read the book. Actually, I haven't bought the book. And I don't know what the title of it is. And so if you can email it to me, I'll quickly put the ebook onto my iPad and I'll spend as much time as I can today reading it. So I powered through and I got a full 19 pages of that book read. And then brought all that to the book club that night. So I'm struggling to read a book a month. Now I do have some friends who really work at it. And they can read something more like a book a week. And that, if you've never tried that, that's hard. With everything else going on in life, that's difficult. But they work hard at it, they're passionate about it, they carve out the time, and they can do it. What, though, if the challenge was not to read a book a month, which, as I've told you, I'm failing miserably at, nor to read a book a week, but a book a day? Or perhaps 2 books a day? The chaos that ensued in my life when I tried to get through 19 pages would pale in comparison to trying to get through 2 books a day. It's interesting. There's 2 studies that have been done recently that estimate that the average American, and that would be you, sees between 63,000 and 105,000 words a day. Each and every day. Now, to understand some of the scale, the average American novel is 63,000 words. So right now, you are seeing between a book and 2 books of information every day. Just in terms of words. Not visuals, not orals. You're seeing 2 books a day. In 1970, a guy named Alvin Toffler wrote a book called Future Shock. And in Future Shock, he predicted where he thought Western society would go. Just the beginnings of electronic communication, mass media, and as he looked at it, he feared that there would come a point, sooner rather than later, where we would be unable to deal with all the information that was coming our way. We would simply cripple under the load. That's what he called Future Shock. Interesting enough, Toffler wasn't the first to predict this. In 1870, and if I do my math right, that's a full 100 years before, in 1870, an article appeared in the London Times. And that article, dire warning. Communication technology is going to outstrip our ability to handle it. How can we possibly process information from a distance? That's scary. Communication technology. Issuing dire warnings was, wait for it, the telegraph. I think we weathered the telegraph. We've been able to handle all the information that it brought. But what the London Times worried was this. We were used to, at that point in our history, we were used to only having information that directly applied to us. What we could do something about, that we could somehow connect with. And with the telegraph, for the first time, information was coming from a distance that didn't necessarily have anything to do with us. Again, We weathered the telegraph, but 100 years later, Alvin Toffler saw mass media and he began to worry that we would falter under the sheer volume of information. Well, at 105,000 words a day, it looks like Toffler was right. Information overload, which is the phrase that he coined. He was wrong. He was right about the volume. He was wrong about the effect. You see, the human is a fascinating organism, and the mind is a fascinating organ, and what we've done is we've adapted. We've learned how to take that sheer volume of information and filter it. We've learned to do something with all the information that we can't possibly take in. I can't process 105,000 words a day, so I don't. And neither do you. You filter it out, you bring in what you want, you ignore what you don't. That's great if you're a human being trying to process information. Where it's not great is if you're a human being trying to bring information. You've got an idea. You've got a concept. You've got a story to tell. How in the world do you get a world that has systematically trained itself to ignore the vast majority of communication messages it sees? How do you get them to even notice you? How do you get your page 82 on the bottom? How do you get them to even look at that and not page 84? Now, I'm not talking about getting your idea embraced, believed. I'm talking about somebody simply noticing you're even there. That's why, in my opinion, and I'm not alone in this, we're not really in the information age, we're in the communication age. We're in an era where the vast glut of information forces us to prize and to treasure the communication skills that get our idea heard. That's why this quote struck me in the book, The Mackenzie Mind. It said this: presentation, and that is communication skills. Presentation is the killer skill we take into the actual world. It's almost an unfair advantage. You got a great idea. Now you got to get somebody to listen to it. My favorite communication scholar, and if the media and tech guild are geeks, so am I. I have a favorite communication scholar. I'm sure you do too. My favorite communication scholar is a guy named Barry Brum at the University of Texas. And Barry Brum, in one of his books, The Rhetorical Dimensions of Popular Culture, said this. He likened you and I, the consumers of information in modern 21st century society, he likened us to sharks. Sharks who could simply pick and choose through information and take only what they wanted. You see, sharks are the perfect predator. They don't have to eat you, they can eat you. They can get anything that they want. And what Brum said is, that's what the consumers of information are like now. Without morality, without prejudice, without bias, they can pick that and not pick that. They can ignore you and listen to that. The question is, how do you attract the sharks? Now, I don't know why anybody would want to attract an actual shark. I've been in the water with a shark that I know of one time, in his world. You know, he wasn't behind the screen in an aquarium. I was swimming with the shark. And where I was in the Keys. And if you've ever snorkeled in the Keys, normally what you do, you take a boat, you go out over the reef, you jump off the boat, you just swirl around for a little bit, you get back on the boat. It's not what we did. My friend lived in the Keys, and so basically we went out in his backyard, which was the water, and we snorkeled around. And so we went between islands and over canals and different things like that. And at times it got very shallow, scraping my chest on the sand. And at one point I was like that, and then I saw a channel just ahead of me, and that's where the boats would go through. And so I kind of pushed to get into there a little bit quicker because it was irritating me. And as I did so, there in the middle of the channel, swimming along, was a shark. And that shark had to be, okay, it was about this big. But in my mind, there was one thought, and that thought was, shark? And I was pretty sure in his mind, the one thought was, food? But it wasn't. That shark didn't even pay attention to me. It just swam lazily by. It didn't even know I was there. I started breathing again. Then I saw the barracuda, but that's another story, not going to go into that. Barracudas are terrifying. Shark didn't even notice me. Didn't even know I was there. Now, if I wanted to attract that shark, what would I have put in the water? Blood. Don't judge them. Sharks like blood because blood is life. It's the essence of what they need and what they want. You want to attract the sharks, you put blood in the water. Well, as Hitch said in the movie Hitch, there are principles of attraction. There are principles of attraction in relationship, and there are principles of attraction in communication. And I could talk to you for hours about different principles of attraction that I wonder about, that I've explored, but I'm only going to talk to you about one today. And that one principle of attraction, that which gets people in modern American society to listen to a great idea, is relevance. The telegraph signaled the age where we got information that had nothing to do with us. Right now, people in your audience, with your message, with your idea, want to know, what does this have to do with me? You see, information is cheap. Right here, in this device, right here, the iPhone, I have every bit of information that the world has ever known. I can find it. If I can't find it, Google can find it. If Google can't find it, I can ask Siri to tell Google to go find it. I can ask Siri to ask Google how much information Google knows. Information's a dime a dozen. I can get information. I can say something today, and you can be Googling it right now to fact check me. You are, aren't you? What we need is applied information. We must know why this matters to me at all. When I was in graduate school, I was in a public speaking class, and the professor was dignified. He was a world-renowned scholar, and gray hair, suit, tie. We called him the Colonel. Never to his face, always behind his back. He was terribly intimidating, the Colonel. And one day there was a student speaking, and at the end of the speech, Dr. Rayburn, which was his name, he was in the back of the room and he raised his hand. And the student, this was unexpected, Dr. Rayburn didn't raise his hand. He spoke and said whatever he wanted to. He raised his hand and the student said, "Yes, Dr. Rayburn?" He said, "What do you want me to do?" Now the student was truly confused at this point. I don't know what you mean, doctor. What do you want me to do? He said, "What do you want me to do?" Then Dr. Rayburn strode to the front and he said, "Don't give me information. I can get information anywhere. Tell me why this matters to me. Tell me why this is life for me. Tell me why this has anything to do with my emotions, my relationships, my mind, my heart. Why does this matter? What do you want me to do?" And then he said, which I've never forgotten, he said to all of us, "I want you, every time you speak, to see me in the back of the room, raising my hand going, 'What do you want me to do?'" I still see him right there. Relevance. A few years back, a guy named Eli Pariser wrote a book called The Filter Bubble. And some of you may have read it. There's actually been a TED Talk done by him. In The Filter Bubble, what Pariser explores is how relevance has been taken to a near art form by social network sites and by e-commerce. And he talks about some of the downside, that the bubble he can create about us will only get what we want, not what we need. But the core of his point revolves around how internet technology has learned to refine and target information to just what we want. For example, Amazon. Used to be if you went on Amazon, and Amazon was quaint, used to only have books. But when you go into Amazon and you look for a book, it would say at the bottom, "People who like this also like this." Oh, thank you, Amazon. Now what it says is, "Bruce," and it knows me, "Bruce, we think you would like these titles." How does it know? One of my friends said Amazon recently told him that he would like a Hello Kitty sleeping bag. He tells me that his daughter must have been on the site. How does Amazon know? Well, it tracks us. It watches what we look at and what we click. And as it does so, it takes the vast volume of information, tens, hundreds of thousands of pieces of literature that are on Amazon, and it goes, here's what's for you. We are so used to targeted, tailored information, and quite honestly, we don't have time for information that's not tailored. How can we possibly hear it? The human mind has learned to adapt. Messages that are tailored and targeted answer the question, why, are the ones that get heard. The question I would ask you, and really anybody, is if you've got an idea, which, by the way, you do. You've got a story to tell. You are that hero. You've got a story to tell. You've got an idea. You've got a passion. Why would anybody not, in the information age / communication age, why would anybody with an idea not take the time to invest in that unfair advantage, the communication skills that get your idea heard? Well, I'll be direct. From my experience, there's just one reason. Somewhere deep down in places you don't like to talk about, you're not sure you believe in you enough. You're not sure your idea is good enough. One of the things I've done over the last 5 or 10 years is I've taught at several different universities. And at one of those, I had a student in a public speaking class, and public speaking terrifies everybody, including every student that comes into one of my classes. So at the end of the first day, one of the students came to me and she said, "Dr. Marcey, I'm going to drop the class." And I expected her then to say, "I'm going to drop the class because, Lord, you're going to make me speak," which I was. That's not what she said. She said, "Dr. Marcey, I'm going to drop the class because I'm fat and I'm unattractive. And nobody wants to listen to me." I had a moment there. This wasn't mere anxiety. Somewhere deep in her story, she had heard things that were not true. And she believed that she didn't have anything to say. I thought for a moment, I looked and I said, "Gina," and her name is not Gina. I'm using the name Gina because I've never had a student named Gina. So I said to her, "Gina, I believe in you. You've got a story to tell that's uniquely you. You've got a passion. You've got a concept. You've got an idea. Don't let what other people say. Don't let what you might think get in the way of delivering that idea." Well, she worked hard. She took risks, honestly, and she did well. And then at the end of the class, she gave me a gift. I don't get that many gifts as a college professor. I don't have, like high school, you have parents giving you gifts. I don't, you don't get a lot of gifts as a college professor. She gave me a gift. I opened it up, and it was a notepad that goes in your desk, and it was covered in silver, the case. And engraved on it were the words, "Dr. Marcey, thank you for believing in me." Yeah, I'm not sentimental. I kept that gift. But it wasn't about me believing in her. It was about her believing in her. You've got a story to tell. You've got an idea worth being heard and embraced. Believe in yourself and your story and your heart and your mind enough to develop the communication skills so that the world that is waiting for your story and your ideas gets to hear it. Thank you.